Okay, the final exam is out, and here you have 10 questions and a little extra credit question. So this one should be very straightforward in that most of this we've covered. The real question is about previous issues. So I'll go through quite clearly here. Explain how CPG islands and transcription factors control the cell functions. So you've got two things. All right, so go maybe review CPG islands and transcription factors, all right, from our previous videos. And I want to know exactly how they control the cell's functions. So these two things, CPG islands, I think I'm not giving you too big of a hint here. They turn on and off genes, and transcription factors control if the gene is on, how many RNAs are made. So in other words, that translates into how many proteins are made. So you have to explain to me how that would control the cell's function. So in other words, by turning genes on and off, which is what this one does, and then controlling how many RNAs, or would translate into proteins, how many proteins are made, how do you control the cell's function? So it's a really easy question. Talk about how this one and this one can affect what the cell does, for instance. All right, I don't think I can give you much more hint than that. I'm not looking as much, though you probably should mention it, exactly what, like I said, what these do, and maybe even how they do it, a sentence on how you turn them on and off, and a sentence or two maybe on what has to happen to cause the volume of RNAs to either go up or down. But most of it is on the results, the cell's function. So how is it that what these do control the cell's function? All right, so that's the main idea, cell function. All right, so I emphasize that, huge hints there. I think you're going to do well. I'm not worried about that question. Chemicals that going on to number 2, chemicals that alter methylation. That means back to here, how these two are related. All right, cause cancer. All right, we've already discussed that. Maybe a sentence or two on why that is the case. Why, which is related, to number 1. So a sentence or two on when you alter that, why does cancer occur? All right, or this causes cancer occur. Talk about how maybe methylation does something here, but explain now why, if you do alter this, it might cause the cancer. So what is it about altering this, which is related to this question up here, if you got this one, and you can refer to it by going, just like I said in number 1, the CPG islands do this. When this is altered, this, it might cause cancer in this way. All right, that's what I'm getting to. And if you look through the videos, if you can find a video where I talk about mayonnaise and peanut butter, that's the one you need to be watching. So mayonnaise and peanut butter, that's probably where you're going to get the answer to this. All right, and I think this was actually a question previously, maybe worded different, but it is a previous question on the test. All right, so compare and contrast the mitochondria and the chloroplast. How are they different? Those two structures, all eukaryotes have mitochondria, including plants. But plants also have chloroplasts. Chloroplasts, of course, do photosynthesis, and that makes them more efficient. So compare and contrast, not just photosynthesis, but as a general rule, they're shaped different, they have some different structures, things like that. Explain those differences, and also explain how they do things the same. So what things do they do that are the same? What are they used for? All right, go back and look at the early ones about, hey, mitochondria does this, then you go find out what the chloroplast does. Oh, well, they're the same. So what two things do they do the same? More than two, but I mean, these two structures do certain things the same, but then they do them slightly different, and of course they're shaped different. So you might talk about that as well. All right. The xylem and phloem. Now we did xylem and phloem on the plant one. Just it's really the same question. Just want to make sure everybody gets xylem and phloem. Those are important for if you take another biology course and it involves plants. They usually talk about xylem and phloem at some level, so you need to understand that. And number 5, I've chosen 2 distinct organisms that have some things that are similar. So by comparing these two, you'll get the idea of what is it that makes something an animal. Both of these are animals, but these are 2 very distinct animals with very distinct abilities, and you need to discuss how they are both animals, that's the compare part, and then how they are different. What are different between the 2? And this should be pretty straightforward. There are many things that only mammals do, and then mammals are very, very well defined. Insects are much broader, but the things that mammals don't do that insects can, and vice versa, those are the things you need to focus on. I would probably start out on this one with what is it that makes a mammal, and then go and say, well, how many of those things can't an insect do? And then you might look at very distinct things that make something an insect, and just say, well, a mammal doesn't have any of these parts, and it can't do this. It doesn't do this, that sort of thing. Make sure to look at reproductive part. Don't forget the reproductive aspects of the 2. All right. How might epigenetics alter the way we do medicine? Now, this is kind of an open-ended one, but if you understood the videos on epigenetics, and epigenetics really come down to altering our CPG islands and our transcription factors. Anything that alters those from one generation to the other, mainly something gets turned on or off in here. I'm big as hand as I can do, and it might be caused by what you do in your life. And now a lot of that stuff is supposed to be cleared, washed away. You might call this, I think one video calls it punctuation on your genes, at least on the part before the promoter. So this is punctuation, and it's supposed to get erased. Like here's an apostrophe, here's a period, capital letter. Those are punctuation type marks, and those are supposed to get erased when you go from one generation to the next, but sometimes they get left on. That is what epigenetics is all about. So now that we kind of know, if you think about what epigenetics are, it's those things that happen to you in life that alter the regulation of your genes while you're living. Increase the amount of RNAs, or turn a gene on or off that shouldn't be, or intentional over time, like you go through puberty and you turn some different genes off and some other ones on. If those marks that control that are not washed away and they're passed on to your children, well, they inherited that trait. Something in your life caused those things to change, and they weren't erased when you passed your genes on to your children. So those genes get used not like they were when you were born, but they're passed on to your children so that they get used like they were when you were older. And that may alter the way we do medicine. So think about medicine, and think about how, if you were to go into the doctor and what the doctor might tell you, maybe, for instance, think about smoking. Smoking absolutely alters these things. So what might a doctor ask you now when you go into the doctor? That maybe they don't just ask you if you smoke, but maybe they ask if your parents or your grandparents smoked, or something like that. The idea here is medicine may now be done a different way, and it may change how we look at things. So just talk about what I've talked about here a little. You might read on this. You might look up exactly this question online and see what people say. Let's see. Why were the animals in the Galapagos Islands so different from anywhere else on Earth? This would certainly be in the long movie, but it could be other places. Think about it. You know enough to know this answer. This would be a hard one in the sense that I'm not sure I stated it directly, but it is stated in the movie. Let's see, indirectly, and if you just search this question online, you probably get the answer I'm looking for. I've never actually put this question in there, but you're certainly, you're free to do that. That is not cheating. If you ask someone to write your test for you, that's cheating. But if you just go search for things, that's not cheating. So go and look these up, and see if you can come up with a reason why the Galapagos Islands. You know enough. You know why. It's just you'll have to think about what you learned in this on that exam. All right. Create a simple food chain. Now we did at the end here, I gave you some videos on how to do these little food chains and these little models of organisms. So I want you to create one of those little models. Producer, herbivore, and a carnivore, but don't use the ones that I used. Use different animals. All right, and then for the wolfsbane part, you need to create something else. It can't be wolfsbane, but try to think of something that might work the same way. If you found that on the extra credit, you could use that one. That would be a real one, but you need to talk about something that would happen to cause this to occur. So this one can be a hard one, but you can't use wolfsbane. You can use something else though. Think of some plant or something, or maybe some other animal that might work the same way. Something that I will tell you. Let me give you a hint. Let's say wolves. If you were eating something like wolves, a lot of things that are carnivores eat something like a deer or something like that. But their other thing that they usually eat are mice or rats. So that might be a good choice. If you can think of a way to make the rats work like the wolfsbane does, that would be perfectly fine. I have no idea. Try to be creative. I won't grade you very difficultly on this, in the sense that as long as the mechanism works. You tell me about this thing that does something. See if you can. It's just to see if you know how this system works, and you understand it. Getting the exact organism that really did do this thing, that's not the important part. But try to do your best on coming up with something that makes sense. But as long as you understand how the mechanism works, I'm okay with it, because this is a very common thing that happens, and I would like you to understand that feedback loop that occurs. So I'm really wanting you to explain how feedback loops work in this little 3 creature, or 4 with the feedback loop, 4 organism little model. All right, now number 9, what do seasons have to do with the fact that insects often exceed their carrying capacity? What can insects do that deer and wolves cannot? So I'm going to explain that this answer is expecting a reproductive thing. What is a reproductive thing that happens with insects that do not happen with wolves and deer? This is what I'm looking for. And what happens at the end of a season? When it freezes in Houston, all right, that's what I'm getting at. So this is a big hint. When it freezes in Houston, the insects, what happened to them? All right. And then what happened to things like deer and wolves? Well, the thing that happens to the insects is not the thing that happens to deers and wolves. And the insects do something. All right. They have an ability to do something that deer and wolves do not. And it has to do with, like when it turns winter, it was fall and then winter hits. And think about what happens to the insects when they go beyond their carrying capacity. What happens? Well, and then something in nature having to do with seasons fixes the problem. All right. So let's see if you can figure it out. So that can be a hard one. Last one, how might global warming increase the likelihood of something like a dragon being possible? So think about what kept the dragon from being made possible, and think about how global warming might change that. All right. And then the final one is just for fun. Everybody should get this. Everybody should get the extra credit because it's more or less an opinion question. It's just, do you take the time to write it? I want to know what you really liked about the class. What was the most interesting or surprising thing you learned from this class? So take it serious. Don't just put down like one word. Put down a description of the thing you thought was so interesting and why you thought it was so interesting or surprising. So, I'm expecting a paragraph. So I would like you to add that as extra credit, and that'll help your grade on the final here. I think this one's fairly straightforward. Get it done. Everything will be done by 12:30 in the morning of, depending on the way you look at it, Sunday or Monday. So Sunday night at 12:30 a.m., which is really Monday morning at 12:30 a.m., that's when this is due. So in other words, I expect to wake up Monday morning and they're all in, all right? And I have, I believe, a day and a half there to get these graded and turned in. And I apologize, I am grading. I am taking, today it's 1:45 just about p.m. and on Friday here, and I will be grading through, I'm sure, till 1:45 tonight. So 12 hours, that should get me through all your regular exams, and then that will leave me, hopefully a few of you will turn this in before the end of the day on Sunday, and so I can get I will be busy on Saturday most of the afternoon and night, so I can get a few more done. Maybe if you've done the final on Saturday morning, I can get a few of those and some of the other assignments done. Sunday is left for the other assignments and anybody who has turned in their final, and then that would leave me with the last day to finish up whatever finals are turned in. That would leave me Monday, and then calculate your grades. And I will send everybody an email, and you can email me and discuss it if you need to, or we could even Zoom. Then I have to get these in sometime I think before noon on Tuesday. So that should be enough for me to do it. It's just I'm not going to be able to do much between now and then. It'll probably be about 40 hours worth of work in about 3 days. But I have given some of exams 2 and 3 back. Not everybody has 2 and 3 back. Everybody should have 1 if your format was normal. I put the ones with formats that I have a hard time with until the end. So if you turned in HEICs, things like that, I haven't gone back and checked those. I'll do those at the end. I'm sorry, but I have to get a different computer out to see those formats. But if your were PDFs or GIFs or GIFs, I read those right away, and those are graded for exam 1. Exam 2, 3, some of those are done. Some of you haven't gotten those yet. I'm trying to do both of them at the same time. Exam 4 will be the first thing I do here today. I should get all of those back, and then hopefully you guys start tuning in the final soon. I enjoyed teaching this class. Putting it online was somewhat difficult. Adapting it completely to online, I had done it hybrid, but adapting it completely to online was much more difficult than I had expected. But and of course my time constraints really hurt your grading, and I apologize for that. But I will say this: the grades are good. Maybe that's because this ended up being easy. I don't know. Some of your papers are just extraordinary. We have several A's. I usually give, like 2 A's, and I think at this point there are probably 4 or 5. There would probably be about 2 for this size class, and we have 4 or 5. There are probably 10 B's, and the rest of you have C's. I think there is a person who has a D or an F, but that person still has enough left to do. Realize the assignments and the project, don't forget that project, are there to bring up your grade. They count a considerable amount. So if you've turned those in and done well on those, for people who complete them and then blow them off and just give me a sentence or 2 or something, those things will bring up your grade quite a bit, probably a half a letter grade. So those of you with 85s, if you've turned everything in, that should be enough to maybe bump you up to an A. I'm not guaranteeing it, but it can. It happens a lot. If you don't do them, they'll bump you down probably a whole letter grade. So you might have a 90 and you end up with a 79 or something, which is a C if you just don't do them. They can hurt you if you just don't do them. If you have if you have something like a D, making a B on a test can make up for that completely. So realize, and a couple of B's can just make it like it wasn't even there. So make sure that you didn't make such a bad grade. Realize the one bad grade usually won't hurt you too bad, but 2 or 3 will, of course. And if you don't turn in the non-test work, it can hurt you a lot. But nobody is not at this point capable of getting a passing grade. And often I don't have anybody fail this class. Usually I maybe have a D, or 2 D's and 2 A's, and then everybody else makes a B or a C, usually split about even. I think you're going to do a little better than that in this course. I think we're going to have 5, 6, 7 A's even, and I think most of you will make B's. Those of you on the lower end, work hard on this test and any of the assignments that are left, and hopefully you can bring it up to a grade that you like. I have enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed this format. I think when I do the essays and I tell the stories in class and lecture, of course it's better. But I did not want to give up that format. I hate multiple choice tests. Of course, you would have, if it were multiple choice, you would all have your grades back, and it would be, it would be boring. I don't find any enjoyment in giving multiple choice tests, and I don't think they test what you know very well. Hopefully this will. Hopefully you did enjoy this format. Put that comment in with here if you liked that. If you liked the format, or if you didn't like it. If you didn't like it, tell me that too. I know you probably didn't like the fact that the grades aren't in and you can't test, but I had things going on that I could not prevent, and there was no one else to teach the class, so they would have just had to give everybody an incomplete or something. So, but I will send you an email before I turn in the grades, and it will have all your grades and the average, and I'll try my best to make comments. And if anybody wants to email me back and set up a Zoom or something to talk about it, I'll be more than happy to do it. All right, this is it for the class then, and good luck, and I'll send you an email.